Welcome to the BitGeek Podcast. I'm your host, Ron Avis, and joining me as always is my co-host, the Prince of Pixels,
Nick Wright.
And today we're going to be doing a tribute to the original Xbox. So we're progressing through systems. First episode we ever did was the NES because we love the NES and it made sense. We could talk about it for hours and hours and hours. And then, Super NES. And then we start okay. And then we did TurboGrafx, 3DO. We're getting into later systems that maybe we're not as familiar with. And when it came time to do the Xbox, I was worried a little bit because I was thinking how memorable is Microsoft's Xbox to me, really?
I'm actually surprised we haven't done the Xbox yet. But at the same time, exactly as you say, because when it came out, I did not care.
Same.
A lick.
Yeah, I didn't care either. And I thought, PC gaming, even though you had done some PC gaming, I'd done a little bit, I was not comfortable with PC invading the console space.
It seemed like such a joke at the time. Microsoft is making their own console? Please.
Yeah.
Leave it to Nintendo and SEGA.
Yeah, people who will be around forever. No, but you're right. It's kind of like when you hear about Google getting in the console gaming business. Every now and then you'll see that kind of news and you go stay in your lane.
It's we've already kind of accepted Sony in the fold at this time.
Right.
But it's Microsoft, come on.
Well, Sony busted the party successfully, and that was the first time really it had happened. Because it was for a long time Nintendo and Sega, and they were head to head. And then there were some people that tried, like Turbo and Panasonic with the 3DO, and there were all kinds of companies that would come out. They would try really hard. They would invest a lot into it, and it failed, and they only got one generation to get it right. Mm-hmm. So whereas Microsoft comes on board, and they're worth billions and billions of dollars, so they can afford to take that hit and fail, but take the lessons learned and continue on with next generations, and that's kind of exactly what happened. The Xbox only sold 24 million units.
It's really funny to even be having this discussion, considering now, when you think of video games, there's still Nintendo around, but really all you think is Xbox, Microsoft.
Yeah. It's been
Sony.
A two-horse race for about a decade.
Yeah. It's so weird to even be thinking this way that, we, at the time.
Yeah. Well, Microsoft is the last company to break into the party and stick around. They're the last ones to do it. And no one, I don't even think, has really attempted to join in because, you have to have a lot of money and resources like a Microsoft. And Sony had money and resources. Yeah. Thankfully for them, the PlayStation 1 was a massive runaway success. But, like I was saying, Microsoft, it had a horrible, horrible footprint in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
They wanted nothing to do with it. And first, doing some research, coming across some stories and firsthand accounts of the main players, we'll talk about that a little bit. And you start to understand why. It makes sense. It really does if you think about it. And if you know anything about Japanese culture, it is the way it is. And I'm not knocking it. I don't mean that pejoratively at all. It's just very different from American culture, obviously. And, you start to understand wow, they sold 2 million units in 5 years over there. It was way more successful in Europe. Mm-hmm. They were more accepting of it. But the Xbox got off to a terrible, terrible start everywhere except the U.S. And even then you would not consider 20 million a success. That's kind of a bomb. Yeah. That's not good. Yeah. It was a little bit more than say a GameCube, I think, which was maybe right around the same. If I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but I want to say it was 18 million or something like that.
Yeah,
it was for sure a failure for Nintendo, but we had one and we knew people that had them, but it wasn't in every household like an NES was. Mm-hmm. So Microsoft comes out, and as you said, neither one of us cared. And it didn't help, too, that it came out, it was like a Chrome X.
I remember even thinking, like, hearing stuff on the radio for, like, you know, drawings to win an Xbox and whatever, and I still didn't even care enough to, like, even if I won one, I don't care. You know?
Yeah, and I was right there with you. I just did not care. It wasn't until I played a demo of a certain game that we'll talk about that got me to buy one, and it was just like, I'm all in on the Xbox. Let's talk about some of the like factoid type things. Okay. So Nick, do you know did you know that the Xbox wasn't the original name?
Was it Direct Xbox?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. The original. There was a handful of guys who weren't even tasked to do it, but they were curious about consoles and console gaming. They took pieces from an old Toshiba laptop and created like a prototype, like not even a prototype, just like a case, like, you know, like this is what we can do with these parts from a laptop. Yeah. And then they got on board with the head of Microsoft's DirectX in their gaming division, and they going off their popular DirectX technology. They were going to call it that.
Back in the day, DirectX was like a big deal.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Is it still a big deal?
I don't know.
We're not really PC gamers. It has to be. It has to be. I'm sure they're probably on like DirectX 20 by now or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, they were going to call it, Direct Xbox, and then of course they did focus tests and studies, and they shortened it down to Xbox, and that was good. And apparently, too, like they came out with Xbox pretty fast in the process, and they spent a bunch of money like trying to come up with new names, because I don't think the higher ups were super happy about Xbox, the name, but they couldn't find anything better. Xbox always sounded the best, so they stuck with it.
I mean, I'm pretty happy with that original name. It's the names after that always seemed silly, like the next one being Xbox 360. And then because 360 was like kind of weird enough, but it's like, okay, I accept it. Right. And then Xbox One, like, wait, what?
This is the third.
It's
Xbox.
the third one. Yeah. Now we're Xbox One.
They've really put themselves in a weird situation. Like, what are they going to call the next one that nobody knows? Nextbox, I think, would be fun if they called it the Nextbox.
Yeah.
They won't do that, I'm sure. It was the first home console to have a hard drive.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it's made from computer, like a software company.
You pop that thing open, it looks like a computer.
Exactly. It really does. In fact, this is not going to be fair to the people who are listening, but I never even screwed mine back on from the.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the DVD drive, and there would be a place for a hard drive. That's a hard drive tray right there. So it looks like a little.
Have the hard drive in there?
No, I gutted it probably for something else. Frankensteined it. Sorry about the noise, guys. But yeah, so I opened it up. If you're wondering, on the audio listeners only, I just pulled the top of the Xbox open, and like Nick said, it just looks like a little computer.
Yeah, you got like your DVD drive, motherboard, and a hard drive.
Yeah, very cool. And it also was the first system to take advantage of a 5.1 live Dolby Audio, which there had been systems with cutscenes that took advantage of that technology, but Xbox actually would let you play the in-game sound. So when you played a game like Halo, it sounded so much deeper and rich with the sounds coming from like around you. And I remember that very distinctly, thinking like, this is impressive the way it sounds even. Mm-hmm. So that was a first. It was running on a customized version of Windows 2000. And as you maybe know from our Dreamcast episode, and I'm sure lots of you guys out there knew it already, Dreamcast was running on like kind of a modified version of Windows 2.
CE.
Yeah, CE. Yeah. But, and I think it upset some people at Sega, because I think they were kind of accusing Microsoft of experimenting with their own tech, using their system, not really giving them the best version of the operating system they could have. Just, they wanted to get their feet wet in the console, business. So it was not really considered a good OS for a gaming system. It wasn't real great. I thought the Dreamcast ran pretty well, but apparently like the aspects that the operating system brought to the table weren't so great. Probably, to me, the biggest thing they did, the most important thing they did was, again, going with like a computer, they added an Ethernet port built in.
Yes.
So you, let's just say that you're a PC gamer and you're interested in, joining in on an Xbox. Like, you're already a PC gamer, but you like console gaming too. For that small niche of people, they were like, I'm getting an Xbox. So you could network these together like a LAN, and play games like Halo on a full screen, whereas like GoldenEye, which is a game that they were really interested in, Microsoft was.
Now, was this the first with a broadband built in? Because like Dreamcast, had the capabilities
built in,
but it had dial-up, that came with it. You had to get the adapter for broadband.
It's the first one where you didn't even have a choice. Like, it was just built in, and it didn't require an adapter.
Yeah, because a lot of things had adapters.
Yeah, PlayStation 2 had an adapter you could buy.
Yeah,
but they, like PlayStation and Sony in general, they're not quite as bad as Nintendo, but they were playing catch up really for a while to Microsoft. Like Microsoft, that Ethernet port and what came later, Xbox Live, we're going to get around to that.
Yeah, because there was no Xbox Live yet, so you just kind of did, like crossover cables.
Yeah.
And just like network, and we did that before.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'd run that long crossover cable into the living room, and we'd play on it. We didn't, we'd have like 4-on-4 games, and it was amazing. It was so much fun.
Yeah, that was fun.
Good times. I think one thing that might have hurt them a little bit, and maybe not, and in the past, I've kind of given Sony a little bit of more credit. Like, they sold a ridiculous amount, like 150, 160 PlayStation 2s, like 162 million. I don't know. It was like really, really high. But it was like everybody's first DVD player, right? Well, Xbox had the DVD playing capabilities itself, but you couldn't just use your controller. You had to buy.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yes, you had to buy like a little infrared adapter, kind of like a Wavebird. Yeah. And you'd plug it into one of your USB ports up front
to have like a little remote.
And it had a remote. Huh. So you had to buy a kit, and it was probably only like $50 or so, but that's like the cost of a game almost.
Huh. Wow, $50.
Maybe it was less, but it was branded by Microsoft, so it probably was kind of high.
Wow.
But yeah, so it couldn't be your DVD player right up front. Where PlayStation, Sony, they were very smart. They were like, yeah, it plays DVDs. You just use your controller. And I bet a lot of you people are still out there playing your Blu-rays and stuff just with the Sony controller.
When the remote's available, I like to get it.
Yeah.
But I'd hate to be forced to, though.
Yeah. Yeah, like it would not play a DVD unless you had that infrared remote.
That's interesting.
If you put a DVD in, it would give you like some sort of error message. Huh. So that's nuts.
I never knew that.
And it's not like you could just like...
Well, I guess, truth be told now.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and reveal yourself, Nick? We've talked about it in the past.
So, I guess I never knew that because I never owned an Xbox.
Why would you know that, right?
And we'll kind of get into this, I guess, later. But yeah, I do actually own a few games. Yeah. Like
you own more games than I do now.
Yeah, so I've got like 5 or 6 games, but it's because like I finally I picked it up with Xbox 360.
Yeah.
And so then they had the backwards compatibility. Right. And so I went and I picked up used titles that I knew were good or supposed to be good. Like I bought them used
for like $5.
Yeah, when I got my 360. So so I actually own a few games. Never owned an Xbox.
Yeah, it was me. You it was Halo. And I want to do a Halo episode proper in the future.
Oh, so yeah, you're just gonna say it now.
Well, no, it's on our list, obviously.
Because I was going to add that little tidbit afterwards. No,
you go ahead. You go ahead and talk about it now.
Even before I bought the games, I bought a controller.
Yeah.
So I had.
You would come to my house with your controller.
I finally got sick of like being stuck with like the Pelican. Because when you had like a bunch of people over, when it was just you and me, it wasn't really a big deal. But when you would have like parties, LAN parties or whatever, and we'd have a bunch of people over. I did not want to get stuck with the bad controller, so I went to the store and I bought my own. The S controller was out at the time, and I bought an S controller.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't even own the system, but I had a controller, and
that is the craziest thing ever. That I knew like somebody, but I would have done the same if I knew that I was going to be, because it was a weekly appointment,
and it was even like at one of those parties where I was just like, all right. I'll be right back. I'm going to the store. I'll be back.
Oh my gosh. I would have done the same. If I was playing at a friend's house and I didn't have the console, it was very old school in that way. Like I've always had the console, but I didn't have a Super Nintendo for a while, and I don't think I had an NES. Like, I was always playing other people's consoles for a long time, but I never had to bring my own controller. There was always at least two.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. We just had more people than official Xbox controllers.
Yeah, so. It was because of like one of those network, two of them together. We had like 8 people playing kind of times. It was because of that.
I still feel like there was always, it must have been like Jay who would get stuck with the Pelican, because like somebody always got stuck with the Pelican.
Yeah.
Screw you, Pelican. You make horrible products.
And even Mad Catz, like at that time, Mad Catz was like good. A bad word too.
They're better now.
Mad Catz is good now.
Much better reputation.
Yeah, then it was like, oh, Mad
In fact,
Catz,
is it Mad Catz that has the reissued Duke controllers? That's Hyperkin, I'm thinking. Hyperkin's doing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's Hyperkin. But that would mean those are the people that
they make those retro
games. Yeah. That's interesting. It's just like a Duke, except I guess wireless. So pretty neat. So, but yeah, you didn't even have an Xbox, but you loved Halo so much. You enjoyed playing it so much. And like I say, I want to do a Halo episode proper because I want to get 4KJ in here.
Oh, yeah.
And do an episode just on Halo, because we could talk about all the fun times we had playing that game. Yeah. There's just, remember that. I don't want to get too deep into stories on Halo. Okay. We get to that point eventually.
We'll save it.
We'll say what we can. Why was the Xbox so big? That was one of the main complaints about the.
It was big.
The size of the Xbox turned the Japanese gamers off completely.
Yeah, because this is a time when things were getting smaller, like GameCube. I mean, it was pretty like compact. I mean, it was like a box, but
yeah.
I mean,
it was very,
and even the discs for GameCube were super small.
Super small, yeah. So like, you're right. In a time when everyone is so small, in a time when everything was getting smaller, Xbox was going bigger. And the reason they went bigger is because, and this is the main reason why the console was so big. They wanted to make sure that the power brick was inside. Mm-hmm. So, and they changed that with the 360. They actually had the brick of the 360 on the outside, which is why it was a little slimmer, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that was inside. They had the full DVD-ROM. You know, it wasn't like a small version of a DVD. It was like something you put in a computer.
Yeah, I remember the first time we cracked that thing open, and it was like, wow. I mean, it's like just like the same kind of thing I'd put inside a computer.
There's not any wasted space in here. There's the motherboard, like you say, and then there's the hard drive over here. So it's big because it had to be big. Now, the reason why the Duke was so big is another interesting story. So there's a great article. I think it's on The Verge. No, Endgadget. I'll leave a link in the description, but it's this really fascinating story where they found the original designer of the Duke and had, interviewed them. And, they talked about all the hardships that they came across when they were designing the controller, the things that were in there, like the speed bumps they had to get over, just all kinds of stuff. Like, it's a really in-depth article on the Duke. Microsoft wanted a smaller controller, but they had to go with this size because of a couple reasons. One, they wanted to have the technology. They were already thinking ahead about Xbox Live. They wanted to have these slots where you could have a memory card, because every system had to have a memory card, even though you got a hard drive in here, which is kind of weird. I guess if you want to take a save file to a friend. So they had that, and they had to have that like little device for the Xbox Live adapter. That you would put your headset in, and it had a volume control and all that stuff. And they made it smaller with the S. That still had those things. The controller board inside, the circuit board, was the reason why it was so big. DualShock controllers, the analog controllers for like Sony, had a new technology where they had like 2 circuit boards that were split, and that allowed them to make them smaller. And when they went to the people that were designing the controllers for Sony, they denied them the patent or the ability to use that technology because they were an American company. That they were going to go with Sony because it was a Japanese company. And that's just a fact. They went with this. I mean, you had to be a giant almost to play this thing. It's so puffy and it feels so hollow. But the reason it looks like this was all designed like these little buttons, the gummy like jelly bean like buttons. It was an award-winning designer that they tasked to do it. Like, they spent a lot of money just getting the design. Like, they were very it was meant to be very comfortable. They really tried, and like, this part feels okay. it's just big. It feels weird. And, you know, these buttons up here, like the black button and the, you know, like they're kind of in a weird place.
Yeah.
The Xbox was released in America first. And I don't think that had ever happened before.
Right.
You know, like, well, for the longest time, it would launch in Japan like a long time before in the US. And they started getting closer and closer. For the Xbox, they released it in the US first. And I don't necessarily think that was because they were like, well, this is an American product, we're going to release it in America first. I think that it got delayed because of feedback or lack of feedback they were getting from Japanese gamers. Like, they really wanted it to succeed in Japan. They needed it to. And they made all kinds of attempts to try and do so. But in the end, the best way to put it is just the differences in the American culture and the Japanese culture. There was just this kind of miscommunication. This would be the best word to describe. There was a lot of miscommunication that wouldn't happen nowadays. Yeah. I think there's a lot more closeness between the companies, or, you know, the Japan and US as far as like gaming goes. But just bad translations, miscommunications. I don't think that, you know, Japan, like, apparently there was a lot of swagger, you know. They just didn't appreciate American attitude. It was like whenever they get into a meeting with
swagger.
Well, I mean, you know what I'm saying.
I was kind of wondering what you meant by that at first, but I think I do now. Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is, like, when they had focus tests,
like,
you know, like
confidence, I guess.
Yeah. You know, very confident and just not reserved and quietly respectful and like, oh, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Just very confident in their abilities and like very direct. You know, that's just how they did their business. So, but things that they did learn from gamers that when they were able to get proper translations and stuff back was Japanese gamers obviously didn't like the size. They didn't like the size of the controller. They didn't like that it was black because that's like the color of death.
Okay.
Which is strange because the PlayStation 2 is black.
And then like the Sega Master System.
That seems like BS. But they also didn't like the letter X because like the letter X like translates to something negative in Japanese culture. It's like the letter of doom or death or something like that. Like, so that was another sort of, you know, old-fashioned kind of, I don't like that. You know, just kind of like, I think it was more of the controller though. I really think it was mainly the controller. It just didn't fit comfortably in your hand.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the most part, Japanese are smaller than Americans.
Yeah,
anyway.
they're even smaller than Americans. So, like, long story short, they came out with the S controller. If it weren't for those problems in Japan, we wouldn't have gotten the S controller in the US. It was just such a big. It's like everybody kind of didn't like the Duke. So when they saw that S controller, like, yeah, give me that. So like eventually they just kind of packaged it in with the Xbox, and it became the standard, you know, controller for everything. Yeah. But it was all made for Japanese gamers. And even then they didn't really seem to care about it. It was just like, no, that we got the PlayStation 2 now. We're good. We're good. They actually, for a minute, considered trying to acquire Nintendo. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, they were doing the GameCube, still, you know, doing the GameCube, but I guess the writing was on the wall that it was a failure. Yeah. It was already kind of a failure. And it was not underpowered, because I think that's a myth. It was actually pretty powerful, but the trajectory was going down for Nintendo. And of course, that was not a serious discussion, I don't think. But what they did do was poach Rare. They took Rare. Yeah. And which is actually, it did never really pan out.
No, not really.
Not the way it did for Nintendo, which is so weird. Because that was one thing that I would read in magazines, like, oh, well, they're going to get Rare exclusives. In the N64 days, Rare was all they had. Like, Nintendo was Golden. It was GoldenEye.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo, yeah. Perfect Dark. Yeah. It was either a first-party game that was a big seller or like a Rare game. It was all those games. I don't know if they just like, the studio was gone by then. The people that made those games were gone, or it was a change in like design philosophies and the systems. Those games just weren't working anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they
had like what, Perfect Dark Zero?
Perfect Dark Zero, which was notoriously bad for like buggy thing.
What was there was some other.
Yeah, it was like started with like a K or something.
I don't remember what it was.
It was very colorful looking, but they were launch titles. But neither one of them, if they sold, it was because there was nothing else there. But they weren't promising looking, and they didn't get a lot of good feedback. So they had Rare, and they also had gotten some exclusives from Tecmo They really went after exclusives. But the biggest, obviously, thing that they did was they went and threw a bunch of money and bought Bungie. And Microsoft's, I guess, biggest competitor, Apple, they were making this little game called Halo exclusively for Apple.
Right.
And they just swiped them up. They bought them and put it on the Xbox. And that was probably, if it wasn't for Halo, I don't think you could overstate how big Halo was, how important it was to Xbox's success. I don't think that they would have survived for a second console.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. So that was the shrewdest and best move they made. Let's talk about Xbox Live a little bit, I guess. And I know you're not going to be able to speak to it a whole bunch because you didn't own an Xbox. But I did.
Well, you were like a beta tester.
I was a beta tester. If you paid, I think it was like $60, and in August they would send you a little kit, and it came with like an RC racing game. Get online with it and test it out. You couldn't play Halo online, which is what we all wanted.
Yeah.
We were relegated to GameSpy and like tunneling software. And I pulled this. I just thought this would be fun for you. Like I pulled up, and I'll throw it up on here too. There was this little tunneling software, and it went through GameSpy, and we probably looked at this for how many hours would you say?
Oh man, yeah, just like waiting for people to join.
Waiting for people to like
just be kind of chilling out on the couch or whatever, waiting for like hear a tone or something that somebody joined your channel.
Yeah, and you jump on it and try to get them to join you, and you're like, oh, I'm on a cable like connection. You're like, join me. My internet connection's the best.
We would talk so much crap, you know. We were awful.
We were pretty shitty. We'll save that for the Halo conversation, but I just thought that was neat. Like that brought back memories. But Xbox Live, yeah, I was a beta, but no games were really out for it. So like all I could do was get online, play what they gave you, and I think there was like a football game you could play too, but it was like some generic football game. But it was broadband, and it was like the promise of things to come. And we knew that Halo 2 was going to be their first big title to use Xbox Live.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly the first game, or at least one of the first games that I was interested in to get online and play was Unreal. And I remember like playing it, like me, you, and Jay were pretty excited to get online and try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Unreal's so different from Halo.
Yeah,
It's so much faster, and it's just a different game. It's all PvP. Like, I mean, so was Halo, really. But
well, that's what I ended up liking so much about Halo was that there was like a slower pace about it.
Yeah,
that wasn't so frantic.
You couldn't run.
I never really liked first-person shooters on the computer because there was just something about just everything like moves so quick or something. I'm not even sure how to explain it, but I just never liked them.
Aiming with the mouse, you would always hear the people who are the PC Master Race people talking about how, if Halo was on, a computer, you would get destroyed because of how fast you can aim with a mouse. And they're probably right. I'm sure they're right.
Yeah.
And Halo did eventually come to PC, and you played it. I didn't have a computer good enough to play it, but you had it.
I did, yeah.
Xbox Live launched in 2002. And, there were some games that were Xbox Live enabled, but the big thing to come was, Halo 2 and all that. I was talking about software, and I was mentioning this story to you before we were taping. And I'm not going to have any of the names because I don't have a memory for names, especially like Japanese names. But so when they were trying to get exclusives and they were trying to get software exclusives, like, interest in Xbox. One game, and this is, if you've watched a lot of like things you don't know about the Xbox, you probably know this, but the designer, the creator of the Resident Evil series, which was a huge success for PlayStation, and of course they're competing with Sony. Word got around that the main developer was frustrated with PlayStation 2. Like, I guess they had some kits and they were working on the next Resident Evil game for PlayStation, and they just weren't happy with it. Microsoft was very interested in getting a Resident Evil game on the Xbox. It would have been a huge coup for them. And they got an interview, and they went over to Japan in the offices of whomever the gentleman was. I can't remember. So Capcom, or this designer in particular, had this philosophy. They had this saying and slogan that games art, or something like that. They were very proud. Everybody supposedly knew about it. And when they were in this meeting, they had neither, like the guy from Japan couldn't speak English and the Microsoft representative couldn't speak Japanese. So they had relied on a translator for everything. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how long they were talking, but a point came in the conversation where he asked the Microsoft representative, you know, what are your philosophies on gaming? And he was, I think, wanting to hear something along the lines of like, well, gaming is art, you know, like gaming, you know, we're in this because we love games and gamers first and all that. Well, I don't guess the translator could really appropriately translate it to what the Microsoft representative can understand. And before they could get to that understanding, apparently, like the guy from Resident Evil, Capcom, just got up and walked out. Like he was so offended that it was over. Like there were no more talks. And then, of course, it went to the GameCube.
Yeah, that miscommunication you spoke of earlier.
Yeah. So that's a shame. It might have worked out okay for Microsoft, but it just isn't that weird that something so small and I would consider that trivial.
Yeah.
Really? And maybe there were more. I would like to think there was more to it than that. Were things so tense between American and Japanese publishers?
I don't know. It's just this misunderstanding that, you know, somebody thinks to take something one way when it's not really even meant to be taken that way.
There was a lot of hurt feelings on both sides. Like I know that when Bill Gates originally went to the president of Sony, because you know they were similar to how PlayStation or Sony went to Nintendo to see if they couldn't partner up. Bill Gates was gonna like see if they couldn't partner up with Sony, and they were like, no. It was just like a big fat no. We're not interested. And they started deciding like, well, we'll just go on our own. One of the early project codes that they had for the Xbox was Midway. And, you know, if you think Midway, you're thinking like, you know, the company, the development company. But that was also like a really big victory in the, you know, World War II, the Battle of Midway. That was like a crushing defeat for Japanese, you know, the Empire of Japan. So you're like, well, I have to believe that had something to do with it. Like, we're going to crush Sony. So I don't know, maybe that got out.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I assume that's true. Like, I've read that from a couple different places too. So correct me if I'm wrong. That seems pretty bad. And you know, Sony was probably still hurt, even from Nintendo, another Japanese company. So what happened with them? So yeah, I don't blame them for not being interested, especially from like they're an American company. Like no. I think from this point we can move on to our traditional like 10 favorite games for a system. In this case, the original Xbox.
Okay.
So we have 5 games apiece in our typical form. And do you want to go first, Nick, or should I go first?
No, why don't you lead off?
Okay, I'll lead off. When I think Xbox and Microsoft, just a couple of like franchises come to mind immediately. So I thought it was going to be hard. I started to remember there were a lot of good other games too, like third-party games. And a theme that I think you're gonna hear throughout the rest of this episode is our buddy Jason from the, you know, ranking the Star Wars movies 4KJ. When the Xbox was out, he was like over my house a lot because we live really close, and we have a lot of alcohol soaked memories of playing the Xbox. But I mean, we would just kill like a whole thing of Sailor Cherry and play Xbox all night long. So a lot of my memories are from those alcohol soaked sessions. But this wasn't really one of them. I just wanted to bring that up because I just think it's going to be funny. I'll be like, oh, I remember playing this with Jay. My first game is a game called Dead to Rights. It's a Namco game.
I remember the name, but I don't remember like what the game was like.
It was kind of like a Max Payne kind of game.
Okay.
Third person perspective. It had like a John Woo kind of like sensibility to it, you know, like the action and the attitude and the atmosphere of the game.
Okay.
But it was just, I was really into Max Payne. I thought that was a fun game. Of course, we were moving into more mature games. We were adopting a PC mentality. And, you know, so that meant more mature games. And
Max Payne was a PC game,
yes,
and it came out on the Xbox.
It did get ported to the Xbox, but a lot of those early Xbox games were like ports of PC games. Kind of like how now in a situation where a lot of Switch games are ports of Wii U games that people didn't play. So there were automatically like a number of games that I'd never really enjoyed on a PC that I could suddenly now play. Yeah. And, you know, this wasn't one of them, but there were, I have a lot of good memories of what would normally be PC games getting ported over. But Dead to Rights just felt a lot like Max Payne. And since I love Max Payne so much, it was just more of the same. First-person shooters was really what drove the Xbox, I think. It that was definitely the first person, and it's kind of hasn't stopped too. I mean, like with Call of Duty and Destiny, and it just keeps continuing. But there was just before that wave of first person shooters games, there were still those kinds of games like Tomb Raider, but Bullet Time and all that. So it had all those things. Like it was like a rip off of Max Payne, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and it was easy to beat. And I just have good memories of that game. And it was a Namco game, and Namco games are usually always pretty good.
Yeah, Namco's good.
Yeah. Nick, what's your first game?
Okay, so you spoke before about Tecmo having exclusives. So I went ahead and I chose Dead or Alive 3. Just mainly, I think, because I don't want to choose games that you could get on other systems. I try not to.
You're very good about that.
When we do these things. So Dead or Alive 3 was an Xbox exclusive.
Yep.
And and I was always into fighting games, and this was pretty cool because it was like a kind of a big deal that they had the secret characters and stuff, and they had
was this around the beginning of all that kind of secret character, because they still do that for fighting games.
Dead or Alive is always huge about being able to unlock stuff. It usually costumes, for the girls and whatever.
Yeah,
but yeah, there was like
this was after the jiggle stuff too. Really,
there was
it wasn't as sleazy as the other Dead or Alive games.
I think I don't know if this one really toned it down much yet or not. I don't remember.
I take that back because the Xbox had that bikini volleyball game. That was an Xbox exclusive. So they were still exploiting the women in these games.
In fact, I guess it's really the new one that's not even out right now where they're kind of being like, all right, it's not so crazy.
Let's tone this back where it's a different time. I was pretty well out of fighting games at this point. But I could definitely appreciate the graphics.
Yeah,
the graphics were excellent.
The game looked great, and they're fun to play, and they're not like, in my opinion, like the serious fighter, like Street Fighter and whatever, but they're fun,
Not as technical as those fighting games that we love, like the Capcom fighting games,
and they can get that way. Certainly not as technical as, like, say, Virtua Fighter. Like,
oh my God, that's like the technical king right there.
Yeah, I've never really been able to get into Virtua Fighter because it's just so technical. But I mean, this you can hit buttons and have fun and whatever.
Who's like the feature fighter in the Dead or Alive series? Like in Street Fighters, like Ryu and Ken.
I guess that girl Kasumi.
Okay.
But Dead or Alive is always fun too because it's got like the ninja from Ninja Gaiden, Ryu Hayabusa.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's like a character in the game, so that's cool. That it's like the Ninja Gaiden guy.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's kind of like their own little Smash Brothers. Like they got their own properties. So they just put them in.
So it's all within like the same universe kind of thing.
And this was, I guess, before Xbox Live launched, so they weren't able to take advantage of that. I could be wrong, but I don't think that had the capability.
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? To backtrack just a hair, and we're talking about Xbox Live capability. Another thing that hurt Xbox. Sorry, it's a bit of a tangent. Was EA would not allow their games to be played over the Xbox Live network.
Oh, really? Even when Xbox Live was a thing?
Yep.
Huh.
They didn't want them to. And that changed after a little while, but I remember being very upset not being able to play like Madden over the Xbox, because that would have definitely been a game that I would have played a bunch online. But yeah, EA's got a weird kind of history of, holding their games hostage for whatever reasons. Like they played Sega a bunch too. So they, for whatever reason, they would not allow their sports games to be played over their Xbox Live. I think you could play them online on a computer, but just not Xbox Live.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sorry. Back to Dead or Alive.
Oh, I was really pretty much done with that. And and this is a time before DLC, so
obviously
you could unlock the stuff within the game, not have to like get online and buy it.
A paywall on the game with everything's already on the assets are on the disc.
Yeah.
Like come on, that's just ripping you off.
Yeah. And before, when you bought the game was done too, not like, oh, the day one patch.
Well, let's not pretend like games didn't arrive not finished. I mean, They're more inclined to rush it out now because they know they can patch it. Day one patches are a thing.
There may have been bugs and whatnot in games, but I do really think that they are quicker now to just push out a game to get it out sooner, and just knowing that we can always patch it later on.
You may have that's not a bad point. I can't argue with that.
I think they're quicker to put it out now because they know they can do that.
Because why wouldn't they, right? You got to meet a deadline for the holidays or whatever. If you know you can patch it on day one, they're going to do it. So, good point. All right.
Anyway, yeah, that's it for Dead or Alive. So, number 2 for you.
Number 2 for me is one of those games that Jay and I would play. We would get hammered drunk and play. We would drink and drive. It was Sega GT 2002.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was always a really big Sega racing fan. I loved Daytona. One of my all-time favorite. Daytona. I loved that. I loved Sega Rally GT. It came out later for Saturn. I was just always really into them. I was never really into the hyper-realistic driving games such as Gran Turismo, And the games that, like the Forza games, not just, there's like 2 series of Forza games. There's, which is a big deal for Xbox in the last couple series. Not really so much for Xbox One. They had Project Gotham Racing, which was pretty good. But no, Forza Horizon, that's the one I like. It's a little looser. You're not really on a track. You're just kind of free roaming. It's like a free world, and you can race on tracks, but you can go wherever you want. But no, Sega GT 2002 was just that natural arcade fit. I forgot to mention this. Another coup for Microsoft was they got Sega to agree to an 11-game deal for Microsoft. They released a bunch of games at the front end of Microsoft's life cycle. So, like Sega GT 2002 was one of those games that they fulfilled. I don't think Microsoft was pursuing Sega. I think maybe they thought for a moment about buying Sega too, and because, they had some valuable assets like Sonic. But I think they looked at Sega as just too far in. I think they were already resigned to being a software-only company. And there just wasn't enough interest in Sega product to buy them.
I wonder if Shenmue 2 was part of that 11-game deal.
I'm sure it was.
Because it even says right on there, only on Xbox.
I'm sure it was.
Because I remember, at the time, that was the only way you could get Shenmue 2, because Dreamcast ended up, going belly up at the time and never got its American release. It did come out in Europe on Dreamcast.
Well, they were trying to convince Bill Gates to make the Dreamcast games playable on the Xbox. I remember reading about that and wishing very much that, the Dreamcast could live on in the Xbox. And like, oh, maybe that might be a reason to buy an Xbox. But those talks didn't go anywhere.
I kind of remember Shenmue 2, being the only reason that I was disappointed for not getting an Xbox for.
That was your killer app other than Halo?
Yeah, because it was the only thing that it was available on, since it never came to the States, at least at the time. Yeah.
No, yeah. That, and another thing too is you would think that would have been an incentive for Japanese gamers too, because Sega's huge. They're still making bank in Japan. They still release a bunch of games as software developers. But around this time they were still players everywhere. That was a big deal. So Sega GT 2002. I mean, it's an arcade racer. I don't know if there's a whole lot to say about it. Ferrari, and there were plenty of. They had Ford, Ferrari. They had Chevy, Corvette. They had a lot of name brand cars. It was like a little Gran Turismo light, and it played like an arcade racer with some realistic cars and not the most realistic physics, but that's what I like. And we would get really intense with these games. We would just sit and watch each other race and be like, oh, come on, man, you're catching up to that guy. You can do it. You can do it, Jay. You can get him on this turn. We would get really into it. And I'm sure it was the alcohol, but it made it so much more fun rooting for each other. And I think that's just, a compliment to the game. It was a lot of fun to play. Sega GT 2002 brings a lot of good memories to me.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that's a game you probably wouldn't think of all that much. I'm sure it didn't sell a lot. Because if you were a serious racer, you were probably buying Gran Turismo 3, I guess.
No, I don't know how many they went up to.
Well, I'm thinking about PlayStation 2 times, you know. And Gran Turismo 1 and 2 are PlayStation games, right?
Well, I know one was, but
Yeah. Oh, maybe it was 2 that
I
was
didn't
on.
really follow them, so I don't know.
You just that first one.
Yeah.
This is a time when I was coming back to gaming. I'd talked in the past how like I kind of faded away. Like I went away from gaming. And I came back a little bit with Dreamcast, and I started coming back a lot more with the first. Like, I love first-person shooters even to this day. First-person shooters probably mostly responsible for bringing me back into video games, like hardcore. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate other genres a lot, and I play them, whereas I probably wouldn't have played them 15 years ago. But I owe a lot to Xbox just for kind of energizing my love for video games. And Nintendo was always there too. Like Nintendo never really truly left me. I didn't buy every single thing they put out, but I still wanted to play Mario and Zelda and those games. Yeah. So yeah, Sega GT 2002, that's my number 2. What's your number 2, Nick?
Well, before you had spoken about, playing a lot of PC games that were ported to Xbox. And so this is no different. This is really a PC game. And, well, anyway, I'll just say it. Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic.
KOTOR.
So, yeah, KOTOR.
KOTOR. You don't like that?
No, I don't like saying the acronym.
Is it kind of like when people say shmups? Because I don't like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Or people call the Super Nintendo the SNES.
Oh, I can't stand SNES.
Oh, God, that's trigger.
SNES is okay.
Yeah.
But SNES, I can't
And NES,
stand.
I can tolerate NES a little bit.
Yeah,
I called it NES always, but NES doesn't bother me as much.
I'm the same. I definitely, I call it NES, but I've grown to accept NES, I guess. But
well, there was a character
SNES.
named Ness, too.
Yeah.
Kind of made it a little easier.
Yeah, on the little comics.
Yeah.
But anyway.
You know how like a lot of people hate the sound of the word moist?
Yeah. Moist.
That's SNES for me. Like I can't. Right. Shmups doesn't even really bother me, but SNES, oof, straight down my spine. Anyways, Knights of the Old Republic. I'll respect your naming of it.
Well, and that's okay. I mean, I really don't have a whole lot to say about it because, as we already pointed out, like I never had the Xbox. I didn't really play the PC games much. I'm not big into RPGs, so I mean, I gotta apologize for I'm saying this is like one of my top games, but I didn't really ever play it. I tried to play it, like. God help me, I tried. Like, I just don't get into RPG. There's a very, very select few RPGs that I can get into, and there's a few that I have got into and played it all the way through.
Yeah.
Knights of the Old Republic wasn't one. I tried, but
it's really frustrating when an IP that you love
and that was the whole thing.
That a lot of people
because
really
it's
rave
Star
about.
Wars, and so I love Star Wars, and I'm like, everybody says this is such a great game, so let me try.
Such an amazing story.
Yeah, so it's just I don't know if it's just too much reading. I don't know what the deal is, and maybe I could get into it now. Well, no, I can't get into it now because I just don't have the time.
Yeah, right now, forget it. Yeah, like no time nowadays.
If I had the time, I do wonder if maybe I could. But
would it be more helpful too? Like you say a lot of reading, but wasn't a lot of that probably voice acting?
Well, maybe, but I think part of it too is just not even just the reading or listening. It's just that I want to do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to just sit there and like, oh, story.
I understand.
I just want to play a game, and maybe that's what bugs me about RPGs. I don't know.
That's why I like action RPGs like Zelda. It's like you do get some of those elements of an RPG, but you're constantly doing something.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. I just want to play a game and not choose.
So you're choosing Knights of the Old Republic because the premise was so promising to you.
Well, yeah, just because people always say that it's such a good game, and I think. This is the only console it was on. Like we said, it was a PC game.
Right.
But I think this was the only console that it was on, maybe.
You are correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it was always a feather in Microsoft's cap.
So I guess that's a lot of the reason. I guess I'm throwing it a bone because I don't know.
Well, you can do that when you don't have that many dogs in the game, right?
Yeah, and so I don't really have a lot to choose from because I didn't have an Xbox. So I apologize to all the KOTOR fans.
Hey, I just wanted to do this episode because I think that Xbox, there's a lot more to it than we may remember. It is a very, very, very important console. And I felt like it just really, and I want to go through all the systems. I don't care. In an episode, I want to give each system an episode. So like we had to get to Xbox eventually.
Yeah, I mean we had to.
Yeah.
And so if I don't have much to say about it, I can't help it.
Right. I mean, you don't want to be disingenuous and regurgitate thoughts and feelings of other people.
And there are games that were on Xbox that I really like. Like, I mentioned before, like in fighting games, like there was SNK versus Capcom. That arcade game that SNK put out, not the Capcom version, the Capcom versus SNK, but SNK versus Capcom.
Their take.
The SVC Chaos. That one. Their take on it. I really like that.
Yeah.
And that was on Xbox.
Yeah. Was that an exclusive or was it only, or was it cross-platform?
It actually might have been. I know Capcom versus SNK was on like GameCube and like other things, I think.
Oh yeah, that was across
PlayStation
everything.
2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was across everything. No, you know what? SNK versus Capcom was on PlayStation 2 also,
Okay.
I think. I'm pretty sure. So
I would think just from the SNK element alone, it would probably be.
Yeah, so so I don't want to say things like that just because it's on other things. So
yeah.
that's part of the reason why. So
it looked cool. A lot of people really enjoyed it. And hey, you don't have a lot of games to like,
a lot of people
place.
seem to like that droid. I don't know his name, but I guess, he would call people meatbags or something like that.
And I informed him of his meatbag status.
I vaguely remember something about that. People love the game.
Yeah, Knights of the Old Republic would pop up on my radar only when like, a new game was coming out or end of year lists. And I love Star Wars, but I was way more interested in the more action oriented.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're going to get into. No, I don't think this game's on either of our lists, but Battlefront, that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah, Battlefront. I mean, it was so fun. I love Battlefront.
Yeah.
But it was on PlayStation 2 also.
And PC, and it was probably best on PC.
Right.
But if I was going to play a Star Wars property, it was going to be Battlefront.
Battlefront was fun.
Definitely lots of fun. Okay, shall we move on?
Sure.
I rescue you so we don't have to sit and linger on Knights of the Old Republic anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, well, kind of like going off of what you just said, my next game was primarily a PC game, but as and I even mentioned this in our last episode from talking about the internet, golden age of the internet, as really the first online gaming experience that I had, and that's Return to Castle Wolfenstein: Tides of War.
Right, I remember you saying that.
So the reason I chose this, now this was Xbox Live compatible, but I didn't play online with it. I just played the campaign. And that's why I know.
Sounds like something I'd do.
Yeah. I do that a lot nowadays. Like, I do not like getting online and playing people.
I'm just either.
PvP for me is just not interesting. Give me the player versus environment PvE stuff all day long.
When we were doing it with Halo, it was like something magical.
Yeah.
But I don't like to do it anymore.
Yeah. There's something about the Halo was just the right amount.
And even playing like, Street Fighter and stuff, I still long for the days in the arcade, and I loved playing against people in the arcades and having that competition.
It was a way different experience.
I have zero interest doing it online.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And there are a lot of fun, cool people on, to be fair, like I played Destiny more than any of these other games that I've combined. I mean, it's ridiculous how much I played Destiny.
Oh yeah, you hear the stories about how people like make friends on the internet, like lifelong friends on the internet.
Sure. So it's not all bad, but
Yeah.
it's those few nagging bad experiences. And also, I don't like to be reminded how bad I am. Like, I want to be able to just be okay against my friends. But Return to Castle Wolfenstein: Tides of War was how I got to play the campaign, and man, I loved it. It was so much fun, and I just never really could enjoy it on the PC because it just didn't play as good. It played okay. I don't know why this is. I guess it's because when you play.
Is it because of your PC? Or?
It was because of my PC, yeah. And when you're doing, I think, online PvP stuff, the graphics, they always tone down the graphics so it'll run at a more locked, smoother frame rate. So when you play the campaign, it gets cranked up. Everything, like the frame rate gets bumped up, the shading and the like you just need a better graphics card and a better computer. Yeah. And I just wasn't able to do it.
And that was the cool thing though. We keep talking about all these PC ports on the Xbox. About having such things on the Xbox is that then everybody's hardware is identical, and you're not like, oh well, this PC game, you got to have these minimum requirements, and you're like looking at the box like, oh yeah, I think I can do that. It's all like so complicated. Like, can I play this game? Will it play well on my computer or not? That was always a big question, and that you don't have on a console.
Yeah, you're right. And not to get too much into the whole philosophy of PC gaming versus console gaming, but since you mention it, you're absolutely right. When you're on a console, everybody has the same, except now you got like pro and enhanced versions of consoles.
Okay, yeah,
it's more
true.
like PC gaming. But for the longest time, if you had the hardware is what it was, and it was usually lasted 5 to 6, 7 years, maybe on the shorter end. If it was not doing so good, and you counted on developers getting more like. They find their way around the system better. They find how to squeeze more resources out of the system. Mm-hmm. Games just get better. Games that we get released on a console in the early life cycle pale in comparison to what it's like at the end of its life cycle.
Right.
You look at a game at like The Last of Us on PlayStation 3. Holy God, that game looked really good at the end of its life cycle versus what was coming out on PlayStation 3 at the beginning. So with a PC, you're right. It's like you gotta do all this like mental math, and you're like, do I have enough RAM? I gotta go buy and replace this RAM. Is this motherboard compatible with that? It's like the blessing and the curse of a PC. It's so customizable.
Yeah, you're always like, well, yeah, I think I should be able to play this as long as I,
don't do anything
put the
else.
Detail down.
Right. Oh yeah. No shading. No reflections. And I don't like thinking about that either. I don't want to have to like get so minute into and I know some people really enjoy that, but I just want to, like you said with Knights of the Republic, I just want to play the game, man.
I remember the first time I got like, a pretty decent computer. Like I spent a little bit of money on a graphics card and this and that. Like, man, I bet I can play this one game that I've had for a couple years, like cranked all the way up now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's silly. You go dig up an old game, and it's like I said, it's kind of like becoming that. When I got an Xbox Pro X, I started having thoughts like I should pop in this 360 game and see if how it looks, because it's going to be able to run it better now.
Yeah.
I don't, but I mean, I have that thought. But but with Return to Castle Wolfenstein, it was like the best that you could play on a console. And another thing too is like I feel like first-person shooters ran better on the Xbox than it did on PlayStation 2. Maybe that's just me, but I just feel like it ran better because it was like a computer.
I can't even really think of very many first-person shooters I even played on PlayStation 2.
It was like a lot of Call of Duty games, like those types of games.
I never really did get into Call of Duty at all.
I liked them a little bit. I got into them here and there, but it was something about the Halo, man. Just keep building up to that. Mm-hmm. All right, but what else can I say about Return to Castle Wolfenstein? It was a PC game. It's a lot of fun. It's really weird that I was excited to get my hands on something that I could play with Xbox Live, and I'm sure I probably tried. You know what it probably was? There just weren't a lot of, because when you play on a PC at that time, there were so many people to play against. I bet it was just something like there weren't enough people with a fast enough internet connection who had the game and an Xbox to get like that good consistent stream of games.
Yeah.
Whereas on the computer, it was just like, finish this game, next game's up, finish that game, next game's up. Kind of like how it is now with, Xbox and PlayStation. You just go right to the next group of people.
Yeah. And I mean, the internet then was a completely different beast than what it is now.
Yeah. By 2001, it was really moving mostly to broadband.
I mean, yeah, and we had broadband, but still, I mean, it was
a luxury still.
Yeah.
It was still kind of a novel thing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's my number 3, Nick. What's your number 3?
My number 3, and I've got to give apologies again, but
here comes the disclaimer.
Ninja Gaiden Black. It's another one that was like, okay, this is supposed to be like one of the best games. Mm-hmm. So let me get this.
Yeah.
Like I think we mentioned before, like I bought all these, used when I got the Xbox 360. And I was very excited to try this one out. And I knew it's a hard game. I mean,
it had
that reputation that it's very hard.
Yes.
I don't think I ever beat the first board. I I tried though, and it was just so hard.
I'm with you, man. Like, I was also pretty excited, and as an Xbox owner, I was looking for something to get. And you always get excited when you see an old familiar franchise that you used to play make the jump to a new system. There's a curiosity and like a novel thing. What's it going to be like? It's not going to be just like the 8-bit side scrolling. We knew it was 3D, but like what's going to translate? Is it going to be fun? Because the original Ninja Gaiden games for NES were fun. So, and it had a reputation through journalists and stuff, reading magazines. Like it definitely preceded it. Yeah. I was prepared for a tough game.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be hard, but
not that hard.
But I kind of considered myself a pretty good player.
Decent.
And, I thought I could figure it out, and I just don't think I gave myself enough time to learn the different controls and whatever you might be able to do. I don't know. I just kind of dove in and thought I'd kind of tackle this beast, but
right. It's probably a lot like another series for Sony that I've never played, but a lot of people love, but it also has a reputation for being brutally hard, and that's Bloodborne. And Martin talks about Bloodborne like, ooh, you got to play Bloodborne. But all I ever hear about it, it's hard. So I probably would not like it because I don't like my games that hard.
I just don't have time for that anymore.
Yeah, that's the thing too. And like you said, we're above average gamers. If we sat and played it for like 3 hours, I mean, we're not terrible gamers. We'd get past level 1. But if that hook doesn't get you right away because it's way harder than anything else you're playing, like, forget this, man. I'll put Galaga in. I don't care. I don't care how old it is. It's fun. I'll play it because it's fun.
But, Ninja Gaiden Black, though, is one that if I found the time, I would like to kind of go back and give that another go.
Maybe we'll pop it in the Xbox X upstairs and play it, see what it does, because we have that and it's backwards compatible.
That's what I need to do.
Maybe we'll do that, man. Just pop it in. We'll make time with Logan. He'll enjoy it.
Okay.
All right. But that is another game. That was another alcohol soaked gaming session with Jay, because he was a huge fan of Ninja Gaiden too from a kid childhood.
Oh, okay.
Big fan of Ninja Gaiden, and he was really excited about it too. And we sat and played it, and we were like angry drunk at it, like we were just like, this game, like, I can't do this. And we both wanted to love it so much. We wanted to.
I was always the biggest fan of the arcade game, though, which was totally different even from the NES game. Oh, and that reminds me, when before Black, which I guess is like kind of the director's cut of the Ninja Gaiden on Xbox.
I know, we were like, is Black a sequel? Like, why? Because you were like, I have Black, and I'm thinking, I have Ninja Gaiden. You were looking online, you're like, this says Ninja Gaiden, and then Ninja Gaiden Black's like 4th on this list, but 11th. It's like the same game, but both ranked in the top 10.
Black was number 2 on one of the lists, and Ninja Gaiden was 11. So it's like basically
is this a different game?
Yeah, the same game on the same list, but it's like the director's cut of sorts, I guess.
As a movie lover, when you said director's cut, I'm like, oh, it's the same story, but with a little bit extra added. That's all they had to say.
But where was I going with this? Oh. I remember when Ninja Gaiden came out on the Xbox, that I just remember thinking it was funny that there are 3 totally different games with the same name.
Yeah.
Ninja Gaiden.
It is weird.
The arcade game.
It's a beat 'em up.
The NES game.
Yeah.
Which was like a side-scroller.
Hard as hell side scroller, yeah.
And this Xbox game. So
hard as hell 3D game.
I always thought that was kind of interesting.
It is. It had 3 distinct lives. Yeah, but you're right. It is interesting. It really is. I don't know if I can think of any other franchises and gamings that can claim the same.
It's not even like got some kind of a subtitle. It's just straight up Ninja Gaiden.
Yeah. I'd like to see it come back. Maybe not as hard, but I'd like to see it come back. Yeah. Maybe it will one day. All right, Nick, should I move on to my number 4?
Yes.
Okay. My number 4 is kind of an important title because it was the prerequisite to a series on the next Xbox generation that I love. And this game is called Kill Switch. And it was a third-person, not a first-person, but a third-person style shooting game. Mm-hmm. But the mechanic to that, it was the first game that you could duck behind cover and shoot over top.
Oh, kind of like Gears of War.
Like Gears of War, exactly.
I don't think I've ever played Kill Switch.
It's fun, and it's a lot more arcadey than Gears of War. Like Gears of War is really you feel like you're in a war, you know, like with the environments and stuff. And it does a great job of making you feel like you're in a movie, like Saving Private Ryan. It's awesome. I'm upset with myself for not playing Gears of War 4. I don't know why I never got around to playing it.
I still need to myself. Now, I have played the multiplayer mode. Like, we've done Horde on Gears 4 a few times, but I have not started the campaign, and I want to.
I do too. We just got to make an appointment and do it. We got to do it.
That and Halo 5. Jeez.
I know, isn't it? It seems like a sin that when neither one of us has played Halo 5.
Oh, jeez. I don't even think I've cracked that open.
Yeah, mine's still in the cellophane. It's ridiculous. I got a lot of games still in cellophane.
It's bad.
More income, less time. That's just being an adult.
It's bad.
Yeah. But yeah, Kill Switch is not all that extraordinary of a game. But that mechanic was a lot of fun, you know, being able to shoot, you know, kind of like blindly over the top of walls. And it was just neat. But the game itself was, I don't want to say broken, but it wasn't a complete game. They tried to put a game out to sell like a novelty. It was a novel thing at the time. And it took Epic, you know, a little while later down the road to take that mechanic and go, oh, that's interesting. Let's actually give it a cool story and more resources behind it. I don't remember who Kill Switch was published by. Might be Namco again. Not sure. But yeah, Kill Switch is my number 4. It's a fun game, and there are other games that I have in like shout out territory that probably could crack the 5. But I just want to acknowledge that game for like the novel mechanic that it brought to the table. And we like to do that sometimes. Like we'll give a game a spot in our top 10 or 5 or whatever, just because of its importance and what it brought, you know, down the road. Like people are still using that mechanic. I mean, that's as ubiquitous as it gets nowadays. Like taking the cover behind a wall or whatever. So, but that was like the first one I think that really took advantage of it. And I can't say with great authority that it was the first ever, but it was sold on that mechanic alone. I just remember seeing like ads and stuff like you can do like blind cover fire and, you know, like you can like stay, you can duck behind and shoot. So it was a lot of fun because of that. I played it way more than I would have played it if it didn't have that. Other than that, it was just like a run of the mill third person shooter game. Like, you know, like Max Payne, like Dead to Rights, just nothing to differentiate it.
Yeah.
But that's really all the time it deserves. Kill Switch is my number 4.
Okay. Well, my number 4. Now, this was a big deal, you know, when it was coming out, Halo 2. So not only, you know, because we're bringing up like Xbox Live, but I just remember like all the like on what was that show, X-Play?
Oh yeah,
with Morgan Webb and Adam Sessler.
Yeah,
I remember seeing like, you know, Halo 2 on X-Play and just being amazed at like the first board where the Covenants come to Earth.
God, that was the promise of the game, because Halo 1 ends with you taking the war to them. You know, like that was like how the game was sold. And then remember how much hype the trailer got? Can you remember any trailer ever before that getting that much hype?
No.
I mean, we would sit and rewatch that trailer again and again and again, where he jumps out of the ship and like falls to Earth.
Yeah.
Holy crap, dude. That was amazing.
Yeah, Halo 2. Now, I got to admit, though, that it in my mind, it didn't really live up to that hype as well as...
No, it didn't.
Because I still like Halo 1 better.
I do too.
Which is maybe giving something away, but oh well.
Yeah, who cares if you haven't already guessed? Oh, hey, we're talking about Halo. Like, we mentioned Halo like a ton of times in this. I mean, like, it's going to be Halo, guys.
And even now, like, that very first board is still amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't think the rest of the game really lived up to that first board.
Oh, no, you're right. It was all good.
Yeah.
You know, there were definitely levels that I thought were pretty good and pretty entertaining. And, you know, it didn't do a lot of the backtrackiness that the Halo 1 did.
Yeah.
Halo 1 had a lot of backtracking.
That's a plus.
Yeah. So it felt more like you're going from A to B to C, and you're not necessarily seeing the same thing a bunch of times.
But a huge minus was nerfing the pistol.
Nerfing the pistol was like a sin.
A bit
so
of silence for the pistol.
Yeah. Everybody loved the pistol from the first Halo, and the first thing it was just it was a throwaway gun, in the second one.
It was awful.
It was because of the pistol and we really tried to get into Halo 2 on Xbox Live. We tried.
And I think that's why we didn't get into it as much, is because of the pistol.
I know it's why. It's stupid as that sounds. You consume and the pistol wasn't anything in the first Halo in the campaign. It was all about the assault rifle and that was what you wanted. But in the multiplayer, that's what we wanted. Mm-hmm. And of course, you try to get the rocket launcher because you get more kills, but that's your primary weapon. And when you take it to online, and we consider ourselves pretty good Halo players, we were so excited to get our hands on like Halo 2. Do you even remember that time that there was like a Halo convention or something downtown, and me, you, Jay, and I think maybe Pat,
vaguely,
we were all set to enter this tournament, and we planned ahead. We were all, like months in advance, we were looking forward to it. And I want to say we got down there and all they were really playing was Halo 2.
Yeah, and that was kind of the kibosh.
It was the new game. And there were a few people playing Halo, but it was like old news by that point. So it's being crushed by that.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've kind of like taken it out of my memory now, because as you're saying, like I've totally forgotten about it, but as you're saying it, I kind of remember we're getting excited about doing this tournament.
Oh,
but
man.
then finding out it was
we were
Halo
going to wreck shop, man,
and being like, oh no, yeah, forget it.
Nobody's even playing Halo.
Yeah.
So that was hugely disappointing. But Halo 2, I give it a lot of credit. It refined to this day what people think of when they think of console online gaming and lobbies. Finding opponents.
Yeah.
Revolutionary there. Obviously the graphics were a step up. Dual wielding guns was a very cool novelty at first. And it was really neat to be able to and you could do it with anything that was like handheld, you could dual wield.
I mean, ultimately it kind of ended up being something that I don't really care about.
Me neither.
But yeah, when, introducing it, you're like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. It was way cool to get like a pistol and a needler, and just go into town with that, and that was neat. And I remember playing the maps quite a bit, just not nearly as much as Halo the original. Cool story. I remember the boss at the end being kind of disappointing.
I remember beating the game and being like,
that's it?
That was it? That was the last boss?
I distinctly remember thinking that was a boss. I just thought it was one of those really. I just figured it was one of those really powerful mid boss guys, Yeah. I didn't think it was the boss for the whole game.
Really? That was it?
And it was kind of cool to be able to play as a Covenant.
Yeah.
That was neat.
Yeah.
But
on that note, though, I don't know. I felt like, because they jumped around with the story so much. Like you do this bit, this is Master Chief's side of the story, and then it would be like, oh, now I'm playing as the Arbiter, and seeing his side of the story. And I don't know. I kind of remember being like, oh, geez, it's the Arbiter time again. But I wanted to.
His story wasn't interesting. It was neat to play as him.
I wanted to do the Master Chief stuff. But
that was the story you were interested in. I know what you mean. The story never landed with me.
I think Halo 3 ended up doing it better, playing as the Arbiter. But yeah, I mean, it was fun though. It was. I have good memories of the game. It's just overshadowed. Is all. Yeah.
But anything else we could say about Halo 2 and groundbreaking? I remember reading something along the lines that when it was released, it did more business than any movie.
That's interesting.
And that was another big coup for gaming. It matured gaming even more.
Yeah.
People started looking at it the way it is now.
Yeah,
releases were a much bigger deal.
Yeah,
and we did a midnight release.
AAA games were, did we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember doing the midnight release for that game. Oh man, we were so excited for that. I remember we were outside of a, I don't know, I guess it would have been a GameStop, I suppose.
I don't even remember. I don't know.
I remember, and maybe it was just me and Jay. Maybe you weren't there. You might have been there, but it was a midnight release, and we got there early because you wanted to get your game and start playing right away. No, you were there. You came over and played.
I kind of remember going to your house and playing it.
Yeah.
I don't really remember where we got it though.
But the thing that like was so exciting
Since
is
I didn't have an Xbox.
the thing that was so exciting about that midnight launch that I remember was people were like in line, and the line went way down, and it was what they were doing was since the store had been closed and the people were just coming in for the midnight launch. Mm-hmm. They had Halo 2 out on one of those demos, and they were randomly picking people in line to go in and play Halo 2. Oh, and I just remember being like, what's it like? What's it like? Was it amazing? And like people were like, oh my God, it was awesome. But that never before or have since have I ever been that excited about a midnight release of any game.
Yeah.
And that little touch, I don't know if they've ever done stuff like that before or have since. But for that game, people were just like so stoked. They were there so early. It was neat. It was really nice of them to come up with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think too many places would do that. So yeah, Halo 2. Much respect for Halo 2. Which takes me to my number one. And you got the Halo 2, and it's a big deal, and it's just known to be Xbox. My number one's Karaoke Revolution. And I admit this is a really personal selection of mine. But Karaoke Revolution, it was during the time when Guitar Hero was way popular. Mm-hmm. And those like interactive games were just real, like Dance Dance Revolution, Guitar Hero.
Now, was Rock Band a thing yet, or was it just
no? That was
Guitar
360.
Hero?
Guitar Hero, I think. So it was a neat thing to be able to like put in a game with popular titles and be able to sing along to it in a karaoke. Because I'd never had the nerve to do karaoke like at a bar or anything.
You're right.
But playing it as a game in my red room up above the garage, the bonus room, we could just like let it all hang out, man. We didn't care. And because we got so good at those songs, those like 20 or so songs that they'd give you, it like inspired us to I remember going to a bar and they had karaoke night one night, and I was like, screw it, I'll do a song. I'll do one of those songs that I've played up, in the bonus room that I know really well. And I got up there and I belted it out, and I got like good reaction from people, and it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
So it kind of started this kind of new favorite thing of mine to do, is to go to like karaoke bar like every other couple months.
So did this play with like a mic?
Yeah, it came with a mic. Yep.
Okay.
It came in a bigger box, and it had like the official microphone, and it came with the game. And, like you said, no DLC really, but they would release like new volumes of it. Like in CDs would have like, MTV, like volume 6, volume 7. So they would release a bunch of volumes, but you would always end up using that like same remote.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me, like a couple of games, can't think of any examples right now, but that they would come out with like a CD that had like bonus content that, because it had a hard drive, like you've already mentioned, and you would like kind of install this bonus content onto the hard drive. Yeah. But it wasn't so much DLC, wasn't a thing. Because there were a few games that I remember that would have
DLC like that you didn't download.
Kind of an expansion pack that would have like a CD that you could get at the store, like GameStop or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd see like a new volume would be coming out, and I'd get real excited. And then this interesting thing started happening with Xbox, and I think this is the best time to bring it up. The Xbox was a really, really popular modding device because it was a computer that had a hard drive, and you could install this thing called X Dashboard, I think is what it was called. And it still exists to this day. They don't call it Dashboard anymore, I don't think. I think now it's called like Kodi. Like KODI, just popular like streaming like device. So you would take your hard drive out of the Xbox, plug it into your computer, download everything you needed, and it unlocked all these neat things. Now you could emulate NES games if you wanted to. To this day, you can go on eBay and do lots of searches for modded Xboxes that they'll throw much bigger hard drives in, and they're still popular because you can put it'll play every like old school game. System, I mean, it'll play all those, retro arch and all that stuff. It's incredible. It's really cool. But where the Xbox, like where Halo gave it a bunch of life up front, couple years, and then it kind of like lingered a bit. And for the last couple years, it became our karaoke machine because we found a program that played the karaoke style that you see in bars, same exact songs that they would play in a bar. It was like, it looked the same. Like it had like the little words that come up and the little intro graphics, cheesy intro graphics. And I would go like on torrent sites and I would get every song you could ever want. And I would save it to the hard drive. And, you know, we'd invite people over. Like, it was a lot of me and Jay, like up late at night, getting hammered like karaoke and Creed, whatever. But, man, I got so much enjoyment out of this little guy as a karaoke box later in life. So I had to put Karaoke Revolution on my list, you see, because it inspired a little thing that I like to do, karaoke. Don't do it as much anymore. But I would have never gotten that if I hadn't taken a chance on the Karaoke Revolution game as a total novelty. Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we got, you know, Carrie, would you do it? Oh, I'll do it if you do it. And we safely in your room, in your house, just only your good pal to like not gonna judge you. Like, that was great, even if it was terrible. Like, oh God, that was a little pitchy, dog. But you know, it was fun. You didn't. So, Karaoke Revolution.
That's cool.
And a modded Xbox. Anyways, that's my number one, Nick. What's your number one?
All right, so my number one was Halo Combat
Big
Evolved.
surprise. Yeah. Well, we don't even have to do a whole lot of talking about Halo because we've already talked about it, and we're gonna do a Halo episode in the future. So like we can just leave it at that.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess I don't know how much you kind of said about how like the introduction to Halo. I mean, you've kind of alluded to a few things, but I don't know.
Well,
if
you go
really
ahead.
Told the story.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't remember how you first came across it. You know, like you played some kind of a demo, like at GameStop or something.
I was working at Dillard's in the mall, and one of my, like me and Jay would always go down to the food court, have lunch there. Sometimes we would take it back to the break room and eat it, but for whatever reason, like whatever I ate took me like half the time that normally did. Mm-hmm. So I had a little extra time. I stepped into probably a GameStop, and they had the Xbox demo kiosk. And like you said, no interest. Was aware of Halo, but didn't care. Mm-hmm. Just wasn't on my radar. And I was watching a guy play, and it was that first level where you're like on the beach and you're riding in the Warthog. Like they give you the Warthog like right away, which is smart.
Yeah.
And what these two guys were doing, they were shooting each other. They were just having fun. They were screwing around. They were like shooting the turret in the back, and then they would flip the car over on the beach. And, you know, like they're like, ha, 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 and they're like shooting each other and running far into the water. And the water in that game was nuts. I mean, it's also quaint and cheesy now, but, you know, like levels like Battle Creek. Remember how cool it was? Like you had that little stream that went between the map. Mm-hmm. You could duck underneath of it, and like it felt like water for the first time ever. Like it was like, that's water in a game. So so they left. I mean, I was kind of like, oh, these guys are lame and annoying, but it looks cool. It looked like a PC game. Mm-hmm. But they walked away, and it was just me. It wasn't even Jay. I restarted the mission, and it played that mission where like the drop ship brings you in and puts you in it's Saving Private Ryan, like futuristic style. Mm-hmm. That is one of the best intros to any game I've ever played in my entire life. I couldn't believe what I was watching. You know, because you're taking cover, not in that kill switch kind of way, but, you know, you're shoot. I would get shot, and I would take cover because it would like kind of guide you. And there's like all the other grunts are like fighting alongside you. And like, what is this? This is amazing. And then like the shield would come up. Like that was kind of the new thing.
You say grunts though, but...
Oh, yeah, not the Marines.
Yeah,
Marines.
I know what you mean, but those enemy are called grunts. So.
Right, the enemies are called, they're like, they'd run around. And, you know, the first time you stick a grunt with a plasma grenade, and he like freaks out.
He just starts running around like...
There was so much personality and depth to these enemies. That was like really, AI was like a big kind of term.
They're like, get it off.
Yeah. You would hear those like, I forget what they're called, but the bigger guys were like, what? Elites, thank you, yeah. But it was just teeming with personality and like environment, and you had the audio working for it. So it was like playing a movie. I know it's lame and it's a trite way to describe something that you're amazed by for the first time. Like video games often get compared to movies if it's really good. Mm-hmm. This was just, it blew my mind.
Well, and so
I had to tell you about it.
Yeah, you had that experience, so you had to come tell me about it.
Yeah.
You got to check out this game.
Yes.
So, all right, fine. I'll check it out. So, I do the same thing. You're showing me kind of at the GameStop, playing on the demo of it. And you got to see this car. You're driving around in the Warthog.
Yes.
Like just the physics of it, the way it turns and
there
everything.
was weight to it.
Yeah, I mean it was amazing.
It really was.
So yeah, you kind of. I mean, I was gonna say you got me sold on it, but obviously
you agreed with me. You were like, there's something there.
I was sold as far as agreeing with you, and I went. We had Halo night like every Tuesday, not night, but like day, because I guess. Like we were both off on Tuesdays or something for
we were both in school, and we had jobs I think that allowed us to be able to be off on like nowadays it's like unthinkable, like being off during the day and during the week.
Yeah, it was every Tuesday.
Every week was Halo. For years.
Every single Tuesday.
Never missed an appointment. We not only did we do it every week, we did it for like 8 hours.
Oh yeah, I stayed there like all day playing Halo.
To this day, I still use the term Halo head. Because when you would play it for like 8 hours straight, you kind of like start seeing the levels in your head, and like you get kind of a headache and you're fatigued because it's so intense most of the time.
We knew like all of those multiplayer maps.
Oh man, like the back of our hand.
Yeah.
And we were so good at like as like it's like chemistry on a really like a championship caliber team, like playing basketball or baseball. You get to know one another's like tendencies, and we would just be like, he's on the cliff, like, and that's all we needed to say. Like you would take like the back, and I would take the front.
Some kind of short description to like tell the other guy like where somebody was, and they could instantly just turn and boom, boom again.
Yeah, we had a shorthand communication, and Jay was part of it too. He knew it.
Yeah,
and I think that's like what gave us a leg up playing like guys who didn't play it as much as us. Mm-hmm. We were just so quick to everything.
I mean, we absolutely had that teamwork going.
Yeah, and that's why I loved it so much, man. It was like playing a sport. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't want to laugh so much at like these esport leagues, because I think they're kind of ridiculous in a way, but then again, I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went out, and I mean, it wasn't long after that I played that demo, I bought an Xbox. I had to have it, and I didn't have much disposable income at the time, and it was full price. It was $2.99. It wasn't even out that long. It wasn't like something I just discovered. It was that demo at GameStop. I had to have it. I had to play more of this game, and it's one of my favorite consoles of all time. It really is.
Yeah, it's interesting, very interesting.
It's one
of your favorite consoles of all time. I never bought.
I didn't think of it like before doing the episode that way.
Yeah,
I was a big fan of Xbox 360. That was my favorite console of that generation.
Yeah,
Xbox One, it's good, but it was disappointing to a degree.
I mean, I gotta say though, it has to be because of Halo that when the 360 was coming out, I immediately was wanting a 360.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they really did that right. Like the 360 had a very long. It was they beat Sony. They outright beat Sony that generation. Like it kicked PlayStation 3's tail almost right up to the end. I think Sony caught up with them.
Well, and PlayStation 3, I did not get for the longest time.
Yeah.
It's like it's funny. Like in I guess that kind of generation, I kind of chose one or the other. Mm-hmm. And
we still didn't have a whole lot of money, and they were more expensive then. Like they were like $600.
Yeah, because now I've got Xbox One, PlayStation 4, Switch.
Yeah.
But
probably get the new Switch whatever that is when it comes out.
And I did end up finally getting like a PlayStation 3 at one time, and it was after the skinnier model had come out. I totally missed the fat version of the PlayStation 3.
Yeah.
But
it looked like glass almost on top. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a notoriously problematic system. It was a nightmare to program for, I think. If it hadn't been for the overwhelming success of PlayStation 1 and 2, if that had been Sony's first attempt, they would have died. I really believe that. They had so much goodwill built up over the previous 2 generations that they outlasted it.
Yeah.
And then they did a bang up, like everything that they did wrong with 3, they made up 4 and 4. It's an excellent system. But yeah, so
yeah, that's interesting too. That just thinking about Xbox One and PS4, like, because when it was the Xbox, I gotta say the first Xbox, not Xbox One. They're so weird.
the original Xbox.
So there was Xbox and PS2.
PS2, right?
So I was PS2, didn't get the Xbox because I had to choose one.
Sure.
And
PlayStation 2 was like the obvious choice.
So then the next generation was Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Oh, I'm getting Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Screw PlayStation 3.
Right.
So I was all over 360.
The price didn't help.
Yeah, I was all over 360 at that time. And then when it was PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, I gotta admit, I had a really tough time trying to think of like, well, which one am I gonna get? And ultimately, like, I got Xbox One first, and then I got PlayStation 4 later on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that was a tough choice.
I think too, for the first time, like, they were released, like, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 are basically the same thing.
And it felt like, for the longest time too, it felt like I made the wrong choice, because it's like all of my friends were all about, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4. And it was like Xbox One was like the wrong choice for a long time. And now, I've got both. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I think Xbox One is kind of
I don't want to say I feel like I made the wrong choice. I only got a PlayStation 4 to play Destiny on it.
Yeah.
So for the longest time, I didn't have a PlayStation 4. I was happy on an Xbox One.
I was about ready to say, what did I get one for? I remember now. I got the PlayStation 4. I got it finally because Street Fighter 5 was announced.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and you were really waiting for that.
Was announced.
An exclusive title for Xbox.
That's actually why I have a PlayStation 4.
So
now.
exclusivity played a role for both of us.
Yeah.
Because like Destiny you could get on Xbox One, but they would always include extra guns and maps on. They're still doing it on PlayStation, even with Destiny 2.
Yeah.
So, I have good things to say about both systems. They're both really good.
I love them both.
Yeah, they're totally fine. And then you get the Switch, you throw it in the fold.
I hate to choose.
I do too. That's why I have to get them all.
Yeah.
And we can afford to do that. We don't have the time to play, but we can have them all. But no, I really like my PlayStation 4. They really do have the better exclusives.
And
hands down.
There'll be time frames too where it's like I'm playing the Xbox One the most.
Yeah, same here.
And right now it's PlayStation 4.
Right now it's Xbox for me. It's so weird.
It's interesting because like I haven't touched really my Xbox One in a long time. That's nothing bad about it. It's just what's going on right now. And honestly, Switch is above all of them.
Yeah,
so
same here. Same here.
Playing the Switch way more than anything.
The reason I switched back to Xbox is because I got a really sweet deal. I traded in my old Xbox One, the base, for an X, and they were having GameStop by like $100 off. If I got an Xbox One X and Red Dead Redemption 2 for like $180 out the door.
There you go.
So I wouldn't have, and since it's more powerful, I'll play the one that's more powerful. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
That's why I've been playing more Xbox. It's really not even has anything to do with Sony being better or Xbox being better.
I still got the old Xbox One and the old PS4.
I got the Pro. I got a Pro because I wanted to play PSVR on it. So, not that you need one, but it plays a little better.
Yeah.
Okay, Nick. Like I said, we don't want to talk about too much about Halo. We just had to talk about it a little bit because it was a special game.
Oh man.
Brought us together in those days, like N64 brought us together.
Man, there is like a select few games that you just play like over and over and over and just so much. I mean, there's like
real quick, you pick 3 and I'll pick 3 because I know exactly what you mean.
I know my 3, and Halo's one of them. So
man, same for me.
So I know my 3.
All right, so Halo, we both pick Halo. What's your second?
Oh well, I don't really have an order, but Street Fighter 2.
The same. Street Fighter 2. What's your third?
Super Mario Brothers.
Destiny.
No.
Yeah.
I went further back.
Yeah, well, I love Super Mario Brothers, but I mean, I've played about as much Destiny as you can any game.
Yeah.
I have so many hours on that game. It's stupid. And you include Destiny 2 because really Destiny 2, like Destiny is like a game and they only have numbers because it just continues the story really. It's like the same game. But oh gosh, and I don't play it anymore really all that much.
And when I say Street Fighter 2, all the Street Fighter 2s are lumped together.
Of course, yeah. Champions Edition, Turbo, Super Turbo, like all of those.
They're all lumped together.
Yeah. But yeah, 2 of my 3, I totally agree with you. I think those are like the games that, and to this day, I can go back and play them. You know, I'd totally jump into Halo, especially with Collector's Edition. You got a little more incentive with the graphics and stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, those are great games. I think they'll always be great games because they're great design, original, totally original, and you know, I don't think anybody's done it better than, you know, Street Fighter 2 is still the gold standard of fighting games. Mm-hmm. They might always, there's a new polish on it, whatever. They'll introduce new characters, but that's the one that everybody looks back on so fondly. Mm-hmm. And there are other franchises that come close to it, but those 3 to me are, you know, just so many hours. So many hours. All right, well, that's been our tribute to the Xbox episode. It was a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys learned a little, and you probably had some similar experiences. If you did, you know, feel free to drop us a comment.
I apologize that I haven't played a ton of Xbox games.
It was a really tough ask of you to, like, hey, Nick, let's do a tribute to a console you never owned. Well, yeah, you never owned it.
I guess this was better than when I tried to make a list of 3DO games and I could do demos.
You can at least give it that, right? Yeah. It's better than that. But Microsoft Xbox, I'm still a fan of Xbox. I'm sorry that they had that.
I gotta admit, I was wrong. You know?
Me too.
Yeah, I was wrong.
Me too. And because of the Xbox, I'll always keep a little bit more of an open mind. You know, because like I said at the top of the show, when I see companies like Google, I think, well, wait a minute, who has more money than Google? You know, They could do it if they really wanted to put their mind to it. And if you're like Bill Gates and you have, I read a stat and it was interesting. So the Xbox originally was sold for $300, but it costed Microsoft $425 to manufacture. So right off the bat, they were losing $125 on every console. And that's not even counting and I'm sure parts were cheaper when they lowered the price. So like it probably, relatively moves along with it, but they were losing money. And they lost $4 billion.
Wow.
In 4 years on the failure of the Xbox.
Wow.
But that is like pocket change to Bill Gates, $4 billion. That's why it's such an amazing thing for a new company to jump into the console business, because you got to have a lot of capital and a lot of determination. And Bill Gates is one of the few people in the world that had both. Mm-hmm. So, will we ever see another player in the game? I don't know.
Yeah, time will tell.
Time will tell, I guess. But I will keep an open mind, unless it's like Magnavox or something. I'll make fun of them. It's like, come on, you guys. Or what's like Vizio TVs decides they're gonna go into business, and like
Panasonic's already done it. So
yeah, they already tried and failed, so they're not gonna do it. But you know what I mean. Sharp. Anyways, that's been our episode this week. Hope you enjoyed it. I've been your host, Ron Avis.
And I'm Nick Wright.